I have spent years researching the lost Montandon dynasty of Swiss watchmakers. During that time, I've documented hundreds of Montandon watches across museums, auctions, archives, and private collections. And among all of these timepieces, one particular signature kept appearing. This was H. Montandon of Le Locle. This was a mysterious maker. He was associated with refined Swiss pocket watches from the great watchmaking center of Le Locle. The surviving examples attributed to H. Montandon follow a remarkably consistent pattern: high-grade movements, elegant finishing, and above all, gold watches. Then this appeared: a silver pocket watch. So this silver pocket watch is signed H. Montandon of Le Locle. At first, it seemed like an extraordinary discovery, perhaps even a missing piece of Montandon history. But the deeper I investigated this watch, the stranger it became. This dial is unsigned, which is quite unusual for this maker. The branding is hidden on the inside, on the dust cover alone. And the movement architecture did not match authenticated H. Montandon examples. The case lacks the proper Swiss hallmarks for silver, and some of the details bore a very unsettling similarity to watches connected with a known 19th century counterfeiter. So what exactly are we looking at here? Is this an undocumented Montandon rarity, a unique object by this maker? Is this a watch by another independent Montandon maker of the same name, Henry Montandon, also signing Le Locle? Or is this watch a deliberate false attribution designed to exploit the prestige of a forgotten Swiss watchmaking dynasty? Today, we investigate one of the most controversial watches I have ever encountered. So welcome to Montandon Watch History. As we examine the documented watches by this maker, that these pieces are which are signed H. Montandon of Le Locle. This is the style in which this artisan signed his pieces. This was to avoid confusion with other makers, as we do know that there are a multitude of Henrys that are involved in watchmaking, and several of which were établisseurs. Now, this individual had established this signing of H. Montandon of Le Locle, and we see of his pieces. Now, I have identified 64 objects, and all of these pieces, with the exception of these two unique objects, they are all gold. And we can see we do have this, they tend to be keywind pieces, and there are several stem winding pieces, and these are the suspect silver watches signed H. Montandon of Le Locle. But if we examine these objects, we are seeing that these are in general the keywind, key set variety, and they are generally in gold, either 14 or 18 karat gold. We can follow the progression of serial numbers, which is reflective of a chronological sequence, and the dating supports this. Now, after we get into the middle 1880s, we see that we have already broken this 100,000. Indeed, but probably by the very edge of the late 1870s, but certainly by 1880, we already have these 100,000 serial numbers. And once again, these still are generally, they are the gold watches. However, we are starting to see stem winding pieces already by the early 1880s. But we have, once again, it is not until we get into another maker that, and this is very probably, it is not exactly clear. Do we have the same individual? But we do have, we do start to see these Henry Montandon Locle pieces. Now, these pieces are most certainly in the area of most likely the 1890s to 1900. Now, by this time, it does not appear that Henri, at least, or H. Montandon of Le Locle, was, he had already disappeared from the Devlin almanacs. Certainly by this time. He probably was still making them, even though he was not listed. But there is the impression that we may be dealing with a separate individual who was stylizing his watches, either Henry Montandon in Geneva, as we see here, or perhaps also Henry Montandon of Le Locle. This is not clear, but there's a suggestion of other watchmakers by this time. And the individual that is most likely this individual, and I do believe I have finally isolated without doubt who this maker was, and that will be discussed in a second video. It is going to be very fascinating, deep dive, but I have isolated this after much work. This has taken 9 years of constant research. But we have an individual that, you know, he died in 1915, and he was a widower already from 1880. His wife had died in 1880. Yet by that time when he died, he was already, we see his death notice, he is called a rentier, so he was basically deriving income from properties, etc. So he was certainly not making watches by that late date. And it is probably most likely that during the middle to late 1890s, we can expect him probably no watches after 1894, 1895. That he most certainly would have stopped the watch production by that time. It does seem to be this variety. So I hope viewing the entire documented series of his pieces, that it does show that we do have this definitely we have 64 objects which are almost all gold, with the exception of only 2 pieces. So I hope this was helpful. So let us examine this watch. Now, as mentioned previously, the dial is unsigned, and this is, in general, very rare for this maker. It is almost always one of his branding positionings that he signs the dial in addition to the dust cover. Here we do not have this. So the brand placement, therefore, is off. The signature quality on this is not his usual when we examine the dust cover. Indeed, this piece, and I will provide close-ups, the H is somewhat different on this, and his H generally has a different stylistic to it. So this is a very subtle, very small distance difference. However, this may be something that we should focus on as well when we're looking at the entirety of this question. The movement architecture this is not, in general, the type of movements we're seeing by this maker. And indeed, this movement architecture was actually used by a very well-known watch forger, counterfeiter. This was Armand Schwab, and indeed he has watches signed by his name, and he was operating under Schwab and Frere. But we do have watches from this is circa 1880s. This piece appears to be circa 1880s. Could have been also into the 1890s as some of these features remain popular. The architecture, the crown and bow style, etc. this onion shape for the stem winder. But this, in general, we have, so this is the exact same type of watch that Schwab was making. And indeed, we have a glass plate over the movement, which he also utilized. So we are starting to get a lot of reasons for why this may actually not be an H. Montandon of Le Locle. There are a lot of reasons here. Another issue, and I did have this, now this is a silver pocket watch, but it has no quality control stamp, which by this time is very suspicious, that one would expect a hallmark, sort of post-1882 omission of silver mark implies a deliberate avoidance of this. This is rather odd. Now, I did have this tested, and this tested to the 800, 900s, around in there, consistency, at least for the surface, that this is at least a surface layer of silver on top. But one wonders why there's no control stamp. Now, if we look at the other interior case designs, there's a very, once again, I'll provide the close-ups, there's a very irregular design, almost a distraction on the inside of these. Both, this is a hunter case pocket watch, but we have it on both sides, this engraving pattern, etc., on there. And once again, not witnessed in any of his other watches, and these are all gold watches. Now, it should be stated that in many cases, only the movement has survived, and so we are left to assume that these were all gold watches. So in those cases where we only have the movement and the dial is signed H. Montandon Le Locle, and the serial numbers are also in correlation with what we would expect for him at this time. Now, this watch, it has two different serial numbers. There's an inconsistency of the serial numbers. Now, on the dust cover, we have one serial number, and this is in the 30,000 range. Now, if we look on the other, on the inside of the outer case, we have another number which is also could be interpreted as in the 30,000s, but it is broken up, and they do not correlate between. This is another inconsistency, and I've never seen any of his watches with this broken pattern. That this is rather odd. Now, there is a case maker initial in here, ER. Once again, not prevalent in any of his other watches. So this is yet more of these sort of inconsistencies that just don't make sense. So the serial numbers, this 30,000, we would expect this to have been much earlier, certainly not in the 1880s, which this seems to be at least mid-1880s to perhaps 1890. But so the serial number does not chronologically fit. There is the quality consistency, which we do not have in his other watches. Now, it cannot be excluded that this wasn't made by another Henry Montandon, but this is rather, it is possible, it is plausible, but it is a remote opportunity or statistical chance, because if this would have been another maker taking an opportunity to use this name, this celebrity name, that sort of riding on the coats, this is rather odd, because at this period we do expect him to, the H. Montandon of Le Locle that we know is producing, that there would be a confusion as to authorship. And so this is less likely because of the fact that he had an established reputation in this field, and therefore this would not have been more or less allowable, that only if someone is trying to replicate this individual's fame, we would expect something this variety. Now, it cannot be excluded that he had a customer that specifically ordered specially a silver watch. That this remains plausible and possible. Now, there are other factors here. Now, this is quite sturdy, and this is in fact very, this is a heavy piece, and most of his watches are not nearly as constructed in this variety at all. So this does appear to be a quality watch, but it is different than all of his other pieces. Now, it is interesting, in 9 years of studying this maker, I have only encountered, up until now, this watch. And within 3 weeks of this watch's materialization, a second silver watch, almost identical to this one, appeared. And it is even more bizarre. Now, for this piece, it has this, now it has the exact sort of, it looks like a twin watch, more or less. Now, the dust cover is signed in a different way, and I will provide that as a close-up. But this is, okay, once again, this could be a difference of changing a subcontractor, etc. But this is very strange for his watches in the way this is signed. And it is a totally different stylistic change. Now, it also has the glass plate covering the movement. The movement is exactly the same. It has this non-signed dial, once again. And indeed, it has the engraving inside, like this watch, which is not standard for him. So, and then we have this inconsistency with the serial numbers. And this is a very big factor. Now, it has to be remembered that in general, these serial numbers were, they were also the invoice number to the customer, so that these watches were tracked based on their production, and they would be sold on with this as the invoice number. So it is chronological still at this time. But once again, we have a very weird, broken up serial number, which makes absolutely no sense. It's almost gibberish. There are a series of numbers in a row, and I will provide them here. How does one interpret these? They do not make sense. And these identical twin watches, if we put them side by side, apart from their physical characteristics, the signings are different, and the serialization is totally different. It's like night and day. And this raises my suspicion that what we are most probable, I would put this over 50%, which is quite high, but I would put this over 50% that what we are dealing with are counterfeit watches. And then if this is the case, then this would have most probably been done by this Armand Schwartz. I believe he was located in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and this Schwab, rather, Armand Schwab. Now, Schwab was going under Schwab and Frere, but they were known fabricators of counterfeit watches, Patek Philippe, for example, and they were actually taken to court, and they lost that, and they had to pay this on every watch that they produced in false attribution. This was Patek, spelled with CK, Patek and Company, Geneva, or Genève. They had to pay for almost 900 or over 900 counterfeit watches. but they continued to do so. They continued to do this, and they did not just take advantage of this Patek Philippe brand. They were targeting all of the big names. And H. Montandon of Le Locle, it's this Montandon dynasty, the name. Montandon Frères, for example, is the most celebrated of these. And all the other smaller makers were benefiting by this celebrity. And we see them, some of them indeed presenting at these international expositions around the globe, and oftentimes they were confused with the Montandon Frères franchise. So I just wanted to document this because we are either dealing with a bona fide H. Montandon of Le Locle, and these are now two silver watches, which are brothers. These twins share all these similar characteristics, but then the signing stylistics are totally different, even though the name is the same. So this is rather odd. They most apparently were produced in and around the same time. This seems to be quite clear. But why they should be so different and have these gibberish serial numbers and these very important stylistics. This was indeed the branding of this artisan. So to expect these different flavors, well, it's plausible, it could have happened, but I am more leaning along the lines that we have a very, very curious counterfeit, what we have here. And so once again, these are the three options. This is either a genuine piece, but extremely rare, perhaps for a specialized order by a client who demanded silver alone. It could be this is another smaller maker. However, this maker would be coinciding during the active cycle of this celebrated H. Montandon, Henri Montandon, and this Henri Montandon Nardin. We will discuss more about him and how I know that he is art maker in the next video. And then we are left with this last conclusion that this piece is certainly looking like it is more than likely that this is a fake Montandon watch. So we have three options here, and I tend to put a little bit more light or weight rather on the fact on this third option that we have a counterfeit piece. So thank you for your attention and watching this. I hope if you have any feedback, I would love to receive it. This is a very interesting maker. So little is known about this maker, but I have finally closed the chapter on his identity, and I invite you to my upcoming video. Stay tuned, where I will discuss how I isolated his who was behind this name. So I hope you have a very nice weekend, and wishing you the best. Bye-bye.